After being secretly married to female celebrity Bronte Chadwick for 5 years, I finally couldn't bear her cold violence and her fans' harassment, so I chose to divorce. I sold the house, burned all the paintings I had drawn for her, and set off to travel the world with my backpack. Later, I unexpectedly became famous. On a variety show, she pointed at the woman in the painting and asked me with reddened eyes, "Didn't you promise me that you would only paint for me in this lifetime?" I shook my head with a smile and answered with acceptance. No artist would not love their muse. Isn't it the most normal thing for me to paint for my wife? Her face suddenly turned pale, and she stubbornly tugged at my sleeve. "You don't want me anymore?" Ding. Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. You gold-digging scumbag. Stay away from our Bronte. As soon as I opened the door, I was greeted by a bucket of foul and dirty sewage, mixed with an unbearable stench, drenching me from head to toe. The perpetrators, holding cameras, laughed out loud and maliciously used all sorts of vicious language to curse and threaten me. Look at how cowardly he is. Who knows what underhanded methods he used to hook up with our little fairy. I really don't understand what Bronte sees in him. I heard he stays at home eating for free every day. He's so shameless. I looked at these obsessed fans expressionlessly as they shouted at me frantically. My funeral photo and wreaths were placed at the door. Someone even played funeral music on site, wishing for me to die on the spot. Such incidents had become commonplace during the 5 years of my secret marriage to Bronte Chadwick. I kept a wooden face, trying my best not to reveal my emotions that were about to collapse, and silently closed the door again. Covered in sewage, I received a call from Bronte Chadwick. Her voice was light, as if talking about something trivial. "Griffith, my fans are indeed too much. Don't be angry. They're young and don't know any better." It was the same old excuse. I closed my eyes, ignoring the dull pain in my heart, and asked directly, "Are you coming home for dinner tonight? The crew has a wrap-up party tonight. I can't get away." In the end, she added a sentence, fearing I might overthink. "Wait for me at home. They won't dare to break in. Don't be afraid." The beeping sound of the call being hung up lasted for a long time, and I couldn't pull myself out of my emotions. There was still a trending topic on Weibo, with paparazzi catching videos of her entering and leaving a hotel with her manager, Barnaby Cutler. Unlike how she treated me, she always allowed such news to exist. She even deliberately created a scandalous atmosphere with her manager, letting people mock me, becoming someone insignificant in the eyes of her fans. To the public, she always said I was just her boyfriend. Only a very few people knew that we had long been legally married. Barnaby Cutler, as her manager, often provoked me, embarrassing me both openly and subtly. As the warm bathwater slid down my neck, listening to the shrill curses of the extreme fans outside, the bitterness in my heart grew increasingly intense. Ding dong! A WeChat video call came in. I answered with a faint hope in my heart. But the scene that greeted my eyes made me feel cold all over. Bronte Chadwick's face was flushed red, clearly drunk, and she was shamelessly sprawled in Barnaby Cutler's arms. Her arms, white as lotus roots, were draped softly on the man's chest, her rosy lips slightly parted, looking like she was ready to be plucked. "Brother, sister-in-law is drunk. I'll take care of her for you, no need to thank me. She's been very busy lately, rushing to catch up with announcements and no time to come home. Please understand. Those extreme fans are all rich. They've contributed a lot to Bronte's performance. Just bear with it. After all, Bronte is working so hard for you." With each word he said, the mockery on his face deepened. My heart was gripped by a large hand, making it difficult to breathe. I called out to Bronte Chadwick in a low voice, and she frowned as she opened her eyes. "Bronte Chadwick, do you remember what day it is today?" Bronte Chadwick was stunned, trying to recall with a headache. After a while, she suddenly opened her eyes wide, as if she had realized something. She struggled to stand up from Barnaby Cutler's embrace and said somewhat embarrassedly, "Sorry, I forgot today is our anniversary. Barnaby Cutler, looking disgruntled, snatched the phone and said matter-of-factly, "Brother, you need to understand Bronte. She's been really busy these days. It's normal for her to forget such small things." I smiled bitterly, watching as Bronte Chadwick's face gradually returned to normal, my heart completely sinking to the bottom. She never missed Barnaby Cutler's birthday parties each year, but she could never remember our wedding anniversary. In 5 years of marriage, we had seen each other very rarely, yet she was inseparable from Barnaby Cutler. Even this time when paparazzi exposed the scandal of the two of them entering and leaving a hotel together, she didn't find it inappropriate at all. She was happy to see the CP fans collectively celebrating, and even had the leisure to like the paparazzi's Weibo post. It was blatant indulgence, with no consideration for my feelings at all. I hung up the phone in disappointment. Perhaps I was wrong from the very beginning. In her heart, I had always been just a suitable marriage partner, not a truly beloved companion. The 5 years between us were insignificant compared to her childhood friendship with Barnaby Cutler. I sent the edited text message to the lawyer, instructing him to send the divorce agreement to Bronte Chadwick. Early the next morning, I was awakened by the commotion at the door and saw Bronte Chadwick rushing back. She looked exhausted with bloodshot eyes. Her first words to me were, "Griffith Statham, haven't you had enough of this?" I was stunned for a moment, then smiled mockingly. "I'm serious, Bronte Chadwick. Let's get a divorce." "Shut up." Bronte Chadwick suddenly became furious, pinning me against the wall and forcing me to look her in the eyes. "Who gave you permission to decide on a divorce? Do you think marriage is a game?" As if realizing something, she suddenly laughed. "Griffith, are you jealous? Don't be childish. Barnaby and I are just innocent childhood friends. All that hype is just for work. I'll make up for our missed wedding anniversary. Okay?" She raised her heel and placed her hand on my head, ruffling it gently. I stared at her, dazed, trying to find even a hint of guilt on that face that time had been so kind to. But there was none. After decades of struggling in the entertainment industry, she was no longer the young girl who would blush at a single kiss. Her alluring eyes gazed at me lovingly, but I couldn't be sure if she was still acting. Only the constant vibration of messages on her phone and the ringtone exclusive to Barnaby betrayed her. Barnaby had once boasted to me proudly, "You keep saying Bronte loves you, but she's never written a song for you. Besides that room full of paintings you made for her, what proof is there of your love?" So she had been away all night, recording a song for Barnaby. In the past, I had begged Bronte many times, even before we were married, jokingly asking her to write a song for me as our wedding gift. But she said she never composed for others, as it would lower her standards. Because of the look of utter disgust on her face then, I never dared to mention it again. Now, while I had been endlessly tolerant and accommodating in our love, she had learned to compromise for others, writing lyrics and composing for Barnaby, even going so far as to write his name into the lyrics, proclaiming her love for all to hear and appreciate. Bronte's distinctive voice continued to ring from the phone, but I couldn't bear it anymore and knocked the phone to the ground. "Griffith Statham, what's wrong with you?" She looked up at me in disbelief and demanded, "I understand you're upset, but I've already explained to you, it's all just an act. I've been under enormous pressure keeping the position by my side for you. You shouldn't be so childish." I suddenly laughed bitterly. Looking at her self-righteous expression, I felt that all my efforts over the past 5 years were utterly ironic. "Bronte Chadwick, I'm not joking. I'm really tired. All these years, you've never made our marriage public, keeping me only in the position of a boyfriend, allowing fans to freely insult and attack me. Even when I was nearly driven to depression from the abuse, you never said a word in my defense. I used to think that one day you would see my efforts. But now I understand, I don't have that much patience, nor do I have a heart strong enough to endure the daily online abuse and insults, turning a blind eye while my own wife flirts with her manager. It's been 5 years. We've reached the end. I believe I've been true to Bronte Chadwick, and our 5-year relationship deserves closure. Separating is best for both of us. I said softly, I won't stop you from pursuing your dreams of stardom, and you shouldn't hold me back either. Let's part on good terms. Bronte Chadwick's face went blank for a moment, as if she couldn't process what I was saying, staring at me blankly. After a while, her lips twitched, and her voice was choked with emotion. Griffith Statham, stop joking. You can't leave me. She said this with such conviction, as if certain I was just speaking out of anger. I expressionlessly brushed past her, quickly went back to the room to pack my luggage, and left the home we had shared for 5 years as fast as I could. Before I left, Bronte Chadwick was still on the phone with her badly smashed device, looking annoyed. Barnaby's familiar voice could be faintly heard from the phone. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, feeling all the strength suddenly drained from my body. I felt like the most ridiculous person in the world. Perhaps this relationship was a mistake from the beginning, and I was just a pawn in Bronte Chadwick and Barnaby Cutler's game, a tool to enhance their relationship, standing in for Barnaby at the center of attention, enduring daily online abuse and personal attacks. When the time was right, Barnaby would easily replace me as the person by Bronte Chadwick's side, aided by the support of their CP fans. Bronte Chadwick, you're truly ruthless. I returned to my studio, looking at Bronte Chadwick's face in the paintings all over the room, silent for a long time. Over the years, I had painted thousands of pictures of Bronte Chadwick, capturing her every expression with my brush. I had truly loved her to death. I found a truck and hauled all these paintings to the incinerator, burning them to ashes. Since I decided to leave, these useless things should be completely discarded. I won't give myself any chance for nostalgia. I don't know who leaked the news, but many familiar friends called to inquire about me and Bronte Chadwick. Griffith Statham, are you really breaking up with Bronte? You've been together for 5 years. Can you really let go? I let out a light sigh and said indifferently, we weren't just together for 5 years, we were married. Now we're getting divorced. The person on the other end clearly caught their breath, suddenly raising their voice. You've been secretly married for 5 years, and she still dared to fake a relationship with Barnaby Cutler. Isn't she afraid of being attacked by fans? I snorted, recalling Bronte Chadwick's arrogant tone in my mind. She said, Griffith Statham, this is all work. If you don't understand, then don't stand on your moral high ground and criticize me. I didn't answer my friend's question and hung up the phone. In our WeChat chat, there was still that message she sent more than 10 days ago. Griffith Statham, be sensible and try to understand my difficulties. Okay? Besides that, she hadn't sent another word. I just felt exhausted. In the 5 years we were together, I was constantly required to be magnanimous and tolerant, enduring her ambiguous relationships with various male actors in her shows, watching helplessly as she faked a relationship with Barnaby Cutler, and endless gossip news hanging on hot searches every other day. At first, my social media account was just quietly sharing my paintings, but later it was discovered, and my inbox was filled with abusive messages, causing me to not dare to post my artwork for a long time. But clearly, the money Bronte Chadwick needed when she first entered the entertainment industry all came from my paintings, one by one. That girl who used to blink her starry eyes and constantly praise my paintings. Now she's completely changed, looking down on my paintings, saying they're worthless things, completely forgetting that these were my years of persistence and pursuit. Griffith Statham, you've been painting for so many years and still haven't become famous. What's the point of persisting? The money you make from selling 100 paintings isn't even as much as my fee for one variety show appearance. Painting is all you know how to do. Day after day of belittlement made me increasingly timid, to the point where I didn't even dare to pick up a brush anymore. Looking at the message from the lawyer on my phone, informing me that Bronte Chadwick doesn't agree to the divorce, I closed my eyes for a moment, expressionlessly sending a voice message. Tell her, if she's not afraid of her fans finding out that she's been married to me for 5 years, while still faking a relationship with her manager to gain fans, then by all means, keep dragging out the divorce. Bronte Chadwick, I won't be soft-hearted towards you anymore. That night, Bronte Chadwick frantically sent me messages. Stop throwing a tantrum. I'm really tired. I can't spare the energy to coax you anymore. If there really was something between me and Barnaby Cutler, we would have gotten together long ago. How would it be your turn? Griffith, come back. Let's talk properly. Please don't say hurtful things anymore. I casually glanced at them and then directly blocked her. Since that big argument 10 days ago, she hadn't taken the initiative to contact me. Only when I threatened her career did she finally get scared. That night, I packed up all my things, preparing to drive to Yunnan for a self-drive tour. But in the underground parking garage, I was cornered by an angry Bronte Chadwick. She was still wearing an exaggerated gown, obviously having rushed out to confront me. Griffith Statham, there's a limit to throwing tantrums. Now you get back home. Notify the lawyer to withdraw the divorce petition. I can still. I walked past her directly, opened the car door and sat inside. Griffith Statham, Bronte Chadwick screamed, directly standing in front of my car, her hands pressing on the hood, threatening. You're not leaving today no matter what. If you have the guts, run me over. Her hair was disheveled, her expression fierce, the anger in her eyes almost engulfing me. I paused slightly, sighed and said, "Is this fun for you?" Before Bronte Chadwick could react, her phone started ringing frantically, that familiar song again. Her face visibly stiffened, and she pretended to hang up the call. But I suddenly laughed. Bronte Chadwick, you've said over and over that you wouldn't record songs for others, but you made an exception for Barnaby Cutler. You still want to quibble that there's nothing between you and him? Who would believe that? As I finished speaking, the woman's pupils contracted for a moment, and she was about to refute. It's not like that, Griffith. I raised my hand to stop her, my tone turning cold. I don't want to hear you say this is some kind of marketing strategy again. I only know that the favoritism I never got from you, you gave to someone else. Miss Superstar, let's get divorced. We won't be in each other's way anymore. You can freely fake relationships to grab attention and traffic, and I'll go pursue my freedom. Isn't that good? She suddenly deflated, her eyes flickering with complex and obscure emotions. Barnaby Cutler hurriedly rushed over, smashing his phone on my car and cursing angrily. You had the lawyer release the divorce agreement. Are you trying to kill Bronte? Do you know how crazy it is on Weibo right now? The comments under our official account are a mess. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Bronte Chadwick's face changed, her body going limp, and Barnaby Cutler quickly embraced her. Looking at the woman on the verge of tears in Barnaby Cutler's arms, the last bit of love in my heart completely dissipated. Without hesitation, I started the car and stepped on the gas pedal. The two of them frantically dodged the car, stumbling and falling by the roadside. Paparazzi lying in wait nearby frantically pressed their camera shutters, capturing images of them embracing as they fell. Undoubtedly, tonight's hot search would once again revolve around this love triangle. I heard their voices of surprise and doubt. So all these years we've misunderstood Griffith Statham. He's actually the legitimate spouse. He's so patient, watching his wife and manager hype their CP for 5 years. He's a ninja turtle. Wow, explosive news. We've got material for tonight's trending topic. All the clamor was shut out as I snapped my SIM card in half and threw it out of the car, letting Bronte Chadwick scream and curse furiously behind the car. Online comments took a dramatic turn. After learning about our secret marriage, many people began to denounce Bronte Chadwick's deplorable behavior of being ambiguous with multiple male actors and enjoying CP benefits while married. But there were still die-hard fans blindly defending her, flooding my Weibo account with vicious insults. Being able to marry Bronte is a blessing you've earned from your past life. How dare you divorce her? I really don't understand. Was Bronte blind to fall for such a useless freeloader like you? A long, strong hand snatched away my phone. I looked up to see my former fellow apprentice, Crispin Dalton. The little carrot top who used to follow me around calling me senior brother is now a renowned oil painter in the UK. Time flies, but the years haven't been harsh to him at all. He still has that carefree look, with a provocative smile on his lips. He patted my shoulder and said with a grin, "Griffith Statham, is this what you've become after all these years? If Master knew about this in the afterlife, he'd be so angry he'd come back to life seeing his star pupil end up like this." His words made my eyes well up, and I completely broke down. Indeed, I was once a fairly well-known painter in the industry, the most promising student of the revered Master Neville Langdon. How did I end up unable to even hold a brush? After a moment, he looked at my trembling right hand with surprise. "What happened to your hand?" I instinctively pulled it back to hide it. When Bronte Chadwick first debuted, her rival hired thugs to disfigure her face. I appeared just in time and used my right hand to block the knife, saving her. But since then, my hand wouldn't stop shaking, and I could no longer hold a brush. Even though I later tried painting with my left hand, the results were far inferior, and I could never return to my former level. Crispin Dalton's face showed understanding and regret. "I told you back then not to marry Bronte Chadwick. Her shrewd, self-serving personality wasn't right for you. It's a wonder you could tolerate her for 5 years." I forced a smile, barely curling my lips. Crispin Dalton suddenly became furious. "Stop smiling. It looks worse than crying." He dragged me into his car and sped all the way to his studio. He thrust $1 million brush into my hand and said firmly, "If you're sick, get treatment. If you're heartbroken, heal. But no matter what, you can't give up painting. Senior brother, you once said this was your dream." Outside, the wind howled fiercely. Inside the studio, it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My hand holding the brush was still trembling slightly, but I gritted my teeth and made my first stroke on the canvas in 5 years. "All right, I'll start over from the beginning." I immersed myself in the studio, starting with the most basic sketches, working almost non-stop. Crispin Dalton arranged for the most authoritative experts to examine my right hand, running back and forth constantly. He said, "I won't stand by and watch a genius be buried. I also don't like seeing the light I chased for over a decade fade away like this. Griffith Statham, show some spirit." I never put down the brush again. The rehabilitation days were painful, but each bout of pain made me more excited. After my hand was healed, I began traveling around the world and opened a new social media account, unabashedly using my real name as the ID. Bronte Chadwick's mistake didn't need to be used to punish myself. Even though there were still many fans leaving vicious comments to insult me, I was able to ignore them and continue updating my artwork and daily life every day. For 2 full years, I won more and more major awards. Standing in the spotlight, I watched as colleagues who once looked at me with disdain now showed envy on their faces. I gradually found the meaning of life again. I was so busy I could barely touch the ground, holding global touring exhibitions, my fame continuously rising. At one exhibition, I met an old friend who joked that I had made a beautiful comeback. She also hinted at Bronte Chadwick's recent situation. Due to the divorce scandal, her reputation had plummeted. With her popularity gone, brands terminated contracts one after another. She even struggled to find acting roles for a while, gradually fading from the limelight. She was even forced to accompany men drinking, bowing and scraping to curry favor with directors she once looked down upon, just to find a way out. My friend sighed, "I wonder if she regrets how she treated you back then." I smiled without responding. In fact, every day since I became famous, I've been receiving calls from unknown numbers. I know who's calling, but I've never answered. That evening, I received another call from a strange number. After a brief pause, the female voice on the other end burst out with intense joy. "Griffith, you finally answered. You've forgiven me, haven't you? I knew you still cared about me." She choked up for a moment, suddenly sounding pitiful. "You don't know how much I've missed you these past 2 years without you." Her words were jumbled. She was clearly drunk. A strange woman's voice came through the phone, seemingly her new agent, gently persuading her to go back and toast the investors, as they hadn't decided whether to give her the 4th female role in the new drama yet. I hung up the phone. The unexpected viral success brought an overwhelming amount of attention, and many variety shows extended invitations to me. On my social media accounts, people gradually stopped mentioning Bronte Chadwick, and the number of fans defending me grew. Everyone tacitly avoided the topic. Even friends who had openly and secretly mocked me before now complimented me on making the right choice to divorce back then. When I mentioned this to Crispin Dalton, I appeared nonchalant. You see, when you're successful, only good people remain around you. He understood the bitterness in my eyes, patted my shoulder, and said nothing more. After more than 2 years apart, Bronte Chadwick's status had plummeted due to the divorce scandal. When I saw her on a variety show, she was seated with newcomers and didn't even have a single line of dialogue. Mr. Statham, what was the biggest factor that led to your success? The host's gentle words pulled me back from my thoughts. I looked up and met Bronte's slightly reddened eyes. She was nervously clutching the hem of her clothes, her gaze repeatedly darting towards me. Time is always kind to beauties. She hadn't changed a bit, still stunningly beautiful. But she no longer had that air of superiority, and even the thick layer of foundation couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Barnaby Cutler, standing beside her, also looked dejected, unable to hide his frustrated expression. As my gaze swept over her, she instinctively pulled her sleeve down, but I still caught a glimpse of the intertwining blue and purple whip marks on her arm. My eyes narrowed as I suddenly recalled an old friend's drunken jest at a welcome party a few days ago. I heard your ex-wife recently offered herself to a big director for a movie role. That guy's known for liking it rough. Wonder if her delicate frame can handle it. Haha. The implication in his words made me frown involuntarily. My momentary distraction prompted the host to quickly change the subject. Mr. Statham, we heard that your breakthrough work was a portrait of a foreign beauty. Would you mind sharing the story between you two? As soon as she finished speaking, there was a commotion from behind. I turned to see Bronte, red-eyed, walking towards me step by step, questioning in disbelief. Didn't you promise me that you'd only paint for me in this lifetime? For the past 2 years, she had been frantically sending me private messages late at night, refusing to give up even after being blocked. From initial angry curses to later incredulous inquiries, and now to tearful pleas. I succeeded, so she regretted. She regretted losing the chance to be the wife of a famous painter. For someone like her, this was worse than death. But if she truly wanted to win me back, why would she continue to be entangled with Barnaby Cutler? I shook my head with a smile, answering as if I'd let it go. No artist wouldn't love their muse. Isn't it perfectly normal for me to paint for my wife? Her face suddenly paled, and she stubbornly grabbed my sleeve. Griffith Statham, are you abandoning me? I violently shook off her hand, my face turning cold. Miss Chadwick, please have some self-respect. We're already divorced. She paused, tears instantly welling up in her eyes, crying like a devastated beauty. No, I don't believe it. How could you marry someone else? Her tone gradually changed from questioning to hysterical frenzy. I've waited for you for so long, checking your social media accounts every day, sending you private messages begging to get back together, but you never replied once. You burned all the portraits you painted of me, not giving me a single chance. Did you ever truly love me? Who allowed you to get married? How dare you leave me behind and pursue your own happiness? Griffith Statham, you liar. Visibly, her emotions completely collapsed. Barnaby Cutler tried to rush forward to stop her, but she slapped him on the spot. She vented her anger on Barnaby, frantically beating him. Her voice choked. It's all your fault. If you hadn't persuaded me to fake a relationship with you, how could Griffith have divorced me? It's all because of your bad idea. Now I've fallen so low that I can only sit in the same position as newcomers. I have nothing left, no career, no love. This is all your fault. She looked frantic, like a madwoman. Barnaby Cutler's expression was hurt, looking at Bronte Chadwick in disbelief, as if he couldn't accept the taste of betrayal from the person closest to him. His lips trembled, his voice quivering. Bronte, don't say such hurtful things. Can we talk about this later? We're recording the show right now. Even now, he was still thinking of Bronte Chadwick, afraid that her reputation would be further damaged after the show aired. Then, as if remembering something, he turned his gaze to me, his tone filled with hatred as if he wanted to swallow me alive. Griffith Statham, are you deliberately provoking Bronte? How can you be so disgusting? Before he finished speaking, Bronte Chadwick's palm struck his face again. She stood in front of me protectively, saying all kinds of nasty things to Barnaby Cutler. She eagerly pledged her loyalty to me, her eyes full of pleading to be forgiven. Griffith, please don't be angry anymore. Okay? I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I will never fool around outside again, and I won't be ambiguous with other men. I'm begging you to come back. Okay? All of this was forced on me by that beast Barnaby Cutler. I really didn't want to divorce you. He threatened to expose all my scandals if I didn't divorce you. I had no choice. And that song I wrote for him back then, it was also because he threatened me. By the end, she was sobbing so hard she couldn't speak, collapsing on the ground. Ignoring the cameras around and the gasps from the audience, she clung tightly to my trouser leg, begging repeatedly, "Don't do this to me, Griffith. I'm begging you. Tell me, you haven't remarried, have you?" I looked at the woman before me in disbelief, this pitiful sight of humble pleading. Even when I first met her, when she was bullied to the extreme, I had never seen her show such a humble demeanor. In my memory, Bronte Chadwick always held her head high, with an attitude of looking down on everyone. In university, she frantically worked to make money, taking on 3 jobs a day to pay off her family's debts. At that time, I felt sorry for her and secretly sent her a large sum of money, but she returned it to me without keeping a penny. Twisting her old shirt that had been washed until it turned white, letting sweat drip onto the ground, she still held her head high and refused me. I love money, but I don't like taking charity from others. At that moment, her thin, lean figure and that stubborn expression fell straight onto the tip of my heart. I closed my eyes briefly and pulled her up from the ground. Forcing her to look into my eyes, I said cruelly, word by word, "Bronte Chadwick, I have fallen in love with someone else." That night, the hot search exploded again. Bronte Chadwick's frantic behavior on the show was edited into meme clips by netizens, quickly spreading across the internet. Her past ambiguous news with Barnaby Cutler was also dug up by netizens. Many people discovered that many of their intimate photos were staged. They had allowed rumors to continue fermenting for the sake of popularity and traffic, never coming forward to clarify even once. From then on, the fans who had once attacked me were slapped in the face. The pure and kind goddess in their hearts was not only a money-grubbing woman who would stop at nothing for traffic, but now she had also become an ex-wife who went crazy when she couldn't have the love she wanted. Bronte Chadwick, once the top-tier idol praised by everyone, had now fallen from grace, becoming an entertainment industry stain that everyone could freely insult. Bronte Chadwick, get out of the entertainment industry. Real-life sleeping beauty of the entertainment circle, after gaining attention through fake relationships, now kneeling and begging ex-husband to reconcile. Griffith Statham times Bronte Chadwick, chasing husband ends in tragedy. Crazy woman Bronte Chadwick, countless hot search terms, with over 100 million views in one day. The cyberbullying that was inflicted on me 2 years ago was now entirely directed at Bronte Chadwick and Barnaby Cutler. Fans photoshopped their obituary photos, sent wreaths, wrote obscenities in unknown red paint at their doorsteps, and even launched physical attacks offline. Bronte Chadwick was almost splashed with sulfuric acid, scaring her into hiding at home for over half a month, afraid to go out. When I heard this news, I was in my studio painting a portrait of my current wife, Winifred Lancaster. She is a completely different person from Bronte Chadwick. Gentle, quiet, unbelievably beautiful. We met at an art exhibition. At that time, I wasn't famous yet, but she admired my paintings as if they were treasures, praising generously to her companion. Such beautiful paintings are destined for bigger stages. The artist is called White Reed? What a nice name. Must be a person with a soft heart. In that moment, my dazed self seemed to see a long-lost dawn through her bright and clear eyes. Our love came naturally, as if it was meant to be. When I'm with her, I can always be my most relaxed self, and inspiration flows endlessly. I didn't lie. Winifred Lancaster is my muse, and I truly love her. I'm also grateful that heaven sent her to my side. Barnaby Cutler's leg was broken by Bronte Chadwick's own hands. When she sent me the video of Barnaby lying on the ground cursing and wailing, her face was full of a collapsed, frenzied expression. "Griffith, look, he bullied you before. I broke his leg. Are you feeling better now?" In the background, Barnaby was sweating profusely from the pain, but his eyes were filled with intense fear. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Bronte Chadwick, have you fucking lost your mind?" The response he got was the woman hitting him even harder. Amidst Barnaby's screams of agony, Bronte's face was streaming with tears as she begged me, "Griffith, give me one more chance. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I really can't live without you. In these 2 years since you left, I've regretted my decision to divorce every single moment. I'm begging you, please forgive me just this once." The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, her eyes blood-red, as if she had completely lost her mind. Watching her agitated state, I realized there was something wrong with her mental state. Seeing that I was still unmoved, she suddenly grabbed a knife from beside her, held it against her arm, and looked at me frantically before making a deep cut. On her snow-white wrist, blood immediately gushed out. Barnaby was stunned with fright. He lunged forward to try to cover her wound but was kicked away. Bronte kept cutting herself, one slash after another, as if she couldn't feel any pain, yet her face remained gentle as water. "I love you, Griffith Statham. I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you, okay, Griffith?" I looked away, took a deep breath, and decisively ended the video call. The next second, I dialed the emergency number. Barnaby's leg was completely broken. Even if reattached, it would never be normal again, leaving him lame for life. Bronte lost too much blood and was rushed to the ICU for emergency treatment, her fate uncertain. Barnaby's family refused to forgive her no matter what, quickly contacting a lawyer to charge Bronte with attempted murder, but were firmly stopped by Barnaby himself. Netizens mocked, saying it was a match made in heaven, that Barnaby truly loved Bronte. Unfortunately, Bronte could never hold on to those who truly cared for her, just like before. Hearing this news, the brush in my hand paused for a moment. My wife patiently helped me mix the colors, her expression normal, her tone calm. "Do you want to go see her?" I turned my head, looking at her serene profile and gentle eyes, and shook my head. I put brush to canvas, filling in the last blank space. In my ears, I seemed to hear the soft laughter of 18 or 19-year-old Bronte next to me. "My dear Griffith, you'll definitely become a world-famous great painter." How did I respond back then? I said, "All right, and I wish you a lifetime of walking on flower-strewn paths, always in the spotlight, as my one and only muse." The speaker meant nothing, but the listener took it to heart. Falling in love is simple. Staying in love is very, very difficult. The final brushstroke ended up crooked, but I felt relieved. I gently set down the brush and tightly held Winifred Lancaster's hand. My life must go on. If I remained trapped in one love, struggling and cowering, I would surely lose myself and never find a way out. Love should never be a shackle that confines a person. I hope we all have the courage to break free from our bonds and the determination to start anew.